CBC Radio this week that your environment plan, or you need to pull your socks up a bit on the environment front. He said that it needs more work, both substantively and presentationally, if Canadians are going to buy into it. How do you feel about that criticism, and also, given that it wasn't one of your top 5 priorities in the last campaign, when the next campaign comes, do you intend to make the environment one of your top priorities?
Well, first of all, in terms of what Mr. Mulroney said, I actually agree with what he said. What he said was that the Liberals have a dreadful record on the environment, and a Conservative government can do better, and more work needs to be done. And I agree with that, and we've been very clear in tabling the Clean Air Act that it is going to follow over the months to come with an aggressive implementation agenda, and there's a lot of work to be done on that. Putting this in place is a major, I say it's probably the biggest single industrial initiative we've had in the history of this country. It's going to take a few months to finish. That's part of the reason I like to keep governing, to finish it, put it in place. And I think Canadians want to see that kind of action. So I agree with the assessment. This fall, you may recall that, I said we had 5 immediate priorities when we took over in the spring. I said this fall we had 2 longer-term priorities we would start to push out more aggressively, and they were environmental action on the one hand and a long-term plan for the management and growth of the economy on the other. Obviously, the Clean Air Act is the centerpiece, although not the only part of our environmental agenda. And Advantage Canada, that Minister Flaherty presented a couple of weeks ago, forms the basis of the longer-term economic action plan.
Continuing with Randall Palmer, Reuters.
Prime Minister, Mr. Layton has said that he would be able to support you only if you got rid of what he calls subsidies for the oil sands industry. Do you find any way of finding common ground with Mr. Layton, and in particular, would you support the idea of restricting the accelerated write-offs for oil sands?
Well, I just point out that, this government just tackled corporate tax fairness with the action we took on the income trust. That obviously had a significant impact on the energy sector. I think it would be asking a bit much to target the energy sector for tax hikes in that manner. Obviously we'll look at all options, but ultimately we have to be fair. All industries have to play their part in regulating greenhouse gases. The energy sector will be a critical element of that, but this is a national plan that goes across all industries. It's easy for some of the other parties, for Mr. Dion or the NDP and the Bloc, who don't represent Albertans and Westerners, to say Albertans should pay all the taxes in the country. But I think we have to be a little bit fairer than that.
Few issues to sort of capture the hearts and minds of the middle class voter. How important is the environment going to be in the next election, do you think? And how do you plan to make sure that your party comes out as being the party on the environment or for the environment? Well,
I think, first of all, in terms of expectations, Susan, I don't think that, ever you will see some of the environmental activists come out and endorse the Conservative Party no matter what we stood for. Because they have their own ideological and partisan bent. But it seems to me that people are concerned about the environment in particular. They're concerned about the perceived effects over time of the environment on their health and the health of their children and grandchildren. So these are the things we're trying to address. We did a focus when we've done the Clean Air Act, and as we implement our Clean Air agenda, the focus is a little different than the other parties. They focused only on so-called greenhouse gases and ignored smog entirely. Not a single one of the other parties has any proposal to control smog. That's part of the plan we're putting into place. Obviously, we pushed out the chemicals management plan, which is, actually Canada is the world leader now in terms of controlling and regulating and limiting the effects of chemicals that may have a long-term effect on health. So, those are the things we want to do. I think it's an important part of what we're trying to do, and I think, I believe a couple things. I think that not only can we make this dovetail in the long term with economic growth, but I think I think it's necessary to have environmentally sustainable growth in the long term, and I think there's a tremendous opportunity for Canada with its energy superpower status, to use that to become a leader in environmental technology. That will not be achieved, if I can be blunt, if the other parties had their way and simply transferred money overseas as a way of saying they were dealing with greenhouse gases. We need a plan, and we have a plan that would put those investments here in Canada and apply technology, Canadian technology, to the reduction of greenhouse gases. That's what we're trying to do. And we think in the long term that will balance economic growth and environmental sustainability. But I'll tell you this, in the short term, you know, people will say, well, just implement the Kyoto target, cut energy use by 1/3 in the next 5 years. There's no way you can do that without devastating the Canadian economy. So we've got to take a longer term approach and a technologically based approach.